We love almost everything Square Enix does. Honestly, at this point, they could probably just take a dump and would still point at it and be like,
and there are few things in this world that I love more than RPGs and farming sims, so when they announced Harvestella, there was no way I wasn't going to play it.
Unfortunately though, we have heard some mixed opinions about this online, and we will admit it's not without its faults. But we will get into those in a minute, just after you get into hitting those like and subscribe buttons down there. But without further ado, let's get to the bottom of it. Is Harvestella for the Nintendo Switch the farming sim that we've all, especially Laura, been waiting for?
Harvestella is like a blend of a farming sim and an RPG, so of course, since apparently there's some unwritten rule enforced by the farming sim gods that they have to either start with amnesia or your granddad who owns a farm passing away, Harvestella went with amnesia.
Okay, this is a little bit cliche, but Harvestella's story, apart from that, is still super unique. So you wake up outside during this thing called Quietus, which is a day-long season in the game where everything goes all dark and reddish and sparkly, and everything outside dies. Well, except for you, because, you know.
How the hell do you wake up dead?
Luckily, someone finds you and lets you live in a shed where you can do some farming while you're trying to get to the bottom of what causes the season of death, why it doesn't death you, and what these big crystal things are all about. The story is a super heavy part of Harvestella, which is obviously where the RPG side of things come from. And we don't want to spoil anything, so we probably won't tell you anything else about the story apart from the fact that it's really awesome.
Sometimes when you've got a game that tries to blend two genres, it's easy to kind of lose them. Like, one gets a bit ignored in preference for the other, but Harvestella does a really good job of balancing both of its genres. The story is what really drives the game here, but you have to actually farm to make it anywhere in said story. Usually you farm for profit or something like that, as in Rune Factory, for example. But I found that I wanted to keep 90% of my harvest to make things like medicine and food and anything that I would actually need out in the field.
You can't just like go to the store and buy up a whole bunch of potions. You have to actually make them yourself. So you really have to embrace the farm or else you will literally die.
You gotta work for that unaliving. Or that non-unaliving. The unaliving.
You can juice your fruits and your vegetables to restore your health, but you also have to cook food as well because you do have a stamina gauge that depletes when you sprint or do any work on your farm or fight or anything like that, and food is the only way to restore it.
A lot of the farming mechanics are very traditional. There's a day and night cycle, so you have to prioritize what you need to get done each day, classic time management. You've got different crops for each season, and you've got your tools which you can upgrade by completing tasks on your farm, like ship 20 whatever fruits or something like that. Later on, you can also unlock your paddocks, so you can raise some livestock as well. A lot of the farming elements here are exactly what you would expect. There's nothing too different, nothing crazy, but don't fix it if it ain't broke, and honestly, it works really well here in this setting.
You do get to unlock a couple of different biomes though, which is pretty cool, so you can both expand your farm and grow plants that live in different environments. The farm is actually massive, and there are heaps of hidden spots and bombable walls around. It's so big that there's actually fast travel points on your farm because it takes so long to walk there, and of course, time is money.
So usually in farming sims, winter is the biggest drag since you can't really, farm. But Quietus is that times 1,000. None of the shops are open, you can't access the world map even, or do any side quests at all. Thankfully, it is only one day long, but it does happen after every season. Luckily though, after some aimless wandering, Laura found this shiny well, which she wasn't sure was there before, but it was always there. just got shiny.
I just missed it.
You just like shiny things.
Oh, shiny. The well is a dungeon, sort of like the mine in Stardew Valley, but it's filled with other wells, and you can look inside those wells and you might find like a horde of monsters or a core item, or you can climb inside it and end up on another floor that's also full of wells. And the cycle continues. It's like a never-ending wellception, and it sounds really weird now that I'm describing it out loud.
Yep.
But it saves your progress after every 5th well, so you can go down next quietus and pick up where you left off. I'm really not sure how many wells there are, but I did get this cool statue the day after quietus, and I assume that they're connected. There's a lot more space left in this room, so if you get a statue after every 5th well, presumably there's a lot more wells.
That makes sense. Like wells inside wells.
There's wells inside wells.
Oh, well. I'll take my leave now.
Take your leave, please. You're fired.
So that's pretty much the deal with farming, but there is a whole nother side to Harvestella that we are yet to explore, and that is its sprawling RPG side. It takes place in chapters that are more or less structured like this. Mini dungeon, town, bigger dungeon, boss. We're not really sure what to call the mini dungeons. They kind of represent the road you have to travel to get to your destination and are much smaller than the dungeons you have to complete before you reach the boss. They're kind of gathering areas, I guess.
Yeah, but then like
Everything is a gathering area though. I don't know, mini dungeon works.
You can complete most of the mini dungeons in around 1 in-game day, but the big areas take at least 2 or maybe 3 depending. I really like the fact that it takes more than 1 day to complete a dungeon. Like I feel like in Rune Factory, all of the dungeons were over way too fast and they weren't really as much of a challenge, but these ones are a good length for sure. Once you've cleared the mini dungeons, you can unlock them on the overworld map and just run there. But do be careful of the time because it can take a while to get places. You can also unlock mounts though later on, which run a lot faster than your little legs, so it doesn't take quite as long.
So there's usually a couple of floors or save points to unlock throughout the dungeons. Lots of monsters, of course. Bridges or ladders you can rebuild to get through faster on your subsequent trips. And there's little decisions you can make that might get you something cool, or they might hindrance you.
The monsters are a mix of regular dudes and these massive fear monsters that are way bigger and sort of enraged. Your party members always say, "We can't kill that one," or "We can't defeat that one," or something like that when you get too close, but you totally can. They're just really strong, so it'll take you a while. They do give you some really cool loot when you manage to defeat them, so I definitely recommend giving them a go, even if it's just purely for this epic soundtrack.
That's good advice actually, because I've never taken them on. Moral of the stories, don't be like me and face your fears.
Don't be a pussy.
The actual bosses though are super epic and their boss fights are also pretty unique. So they have regular moves of course, but each boss also has like a special move that will one-shot you if you don't figure out the secret to it. Like for example, you might have to jump to a certain platform or destroy little bubbles before your time runs out and the move hits. I love a good sense of epicness and grandeur when it comes to boss battles, and Harvestella definitely brings this. Like, be prepared to die multiple times. These things are actually pretty tough.
My favorite part about the combat is the job system. So as you go about your business and you meet more people and they join your party, they have different skills or fighting styles. They're called jobs. And when they join you, you get their abilities as well. There are 3 jobs that you can pick from and you can switch between them when you're in the field. I love the mage class for when you're in the dungeons and things, but when I'm doing bosses, I prefer the shadow walker, but there are heaps to choose from.
When you're not farming or slaying monsters though, there are heaps of 6 side quests to do. I personally am a sucker for side quests and I try to do pretty much all of them in game. It's kind of a curse actually.
A blessing and a curse.
Yeah. In Harvestella, they're a great way to get perks and are actually the best way to make money, at least until you unlock more fields in your farm. Each quest earns you 3 rewards, one of which is cold hard cash, and the other 2 are usually seeds or ingredients of some kind.
Since most of the crops go to medicine, the side quests were my main source of income, but I just genuinely loved doing them as well.
See, curse, man.
No, but I loved it.
Blessing, curse.
Yeah. The side quests make the villagers seem so much more alive, and a lot of them also intertwine, deepening the characters' storylines over the course of a number of quests, which I really loved. The side quests usually aren't just a one and done, which I found really unique and super interesting.
So I'm sure you guys know by now that I love me some music. So trust me when I say that Harvestella's soundtrack slaps. Especially the boss music, man. An epic boss battle needs, you guessed it, an equally epic boss song to match. And Harvestella does not disappoint. The other music is great too, of course. The towns have light-hearted, chirpy songs, and your farm has relaxing tunes that you can chill out to while you're watering your crops. They actually do a really good job of conveying the mood through the soundtrack, and I really appreciate that. And while we're on the subject of like the sounds of the game, there is a little bit of voice acting too. There's not too much, but what's there is pretty good. I would have actually appreciated if there was more, but you know, you can't win them all.
So that's all of the good stuff, but what about the bad stuff? Which there isn't too much of in our opinion.
No, there's not. People complain.
People love complaining.
Right.
Just be happy.
Don't worry.
Be happy.
Don't worry. Be happy now.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that part.
Don't worry, be happy now. Anyways.
There are some performance issues, like some pretty big frame rate drops, particularly during boss fights or special moves. It's not too often and it isn't game breaking, but it is something to point out. The graphics also look incredible most of the time, especially the lighting effects, and the art style is obviously right up my alley, but there is some pretty noticeable texture and asset pop in. So if that bothers you, then that sucks. But I found it super easy to look past personally.
Our next point is kind of a strange one, and we personally have no problems with it. We're literally only bringing it up because it's all over the internet. Some people are taking issue with the male character model being a little bit feminine, because apparently men can't be a little bit feminine these days. I personally don't understand it because the facial features are masculine, if you want, like definitely. Okay, sure they have long hair, but I mean, same. Maybe it's these big hips or the big thighs. I don't know. I don't care. But something we did notice about this game was its inclusivity. None of the character models are stick thin like most other media, especially in this art style. So there is a lot of body positivity here, and we love that.
We also noticed that the characters always say they never say he or she. And you can also pick to be non-binary in the character customization screen. So we personally think that that is awesome. But yeah, the male character model is something that we've seen a lot of people complain about online, but we just don't care really. It's just really not that big of a deal.
It's so a non-issue. Overall, Harvestella is an amazing game, and it might just be my favorite farming sim of all time. I know, it's a pretty big call. Sure, there are some performance issues, so maybe it's not quite S tier, but it's easily in the A to A+ category for sure. The story is epic, the combat is epic, and you can't help but praise it for its inclusivity. The farming is also so well intertwined with the rest of the game that honestly, this thing is pretty hard to fault.
We would love to hear your thoughts down below though. Are you going to pick up Harvestella? And if you have already, what do you guys think? Thank you so much for hanging out with us if you're still here. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons before you leave, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Guys, should I throw out the stress? Or if anybody knows of a dress like this, so I can like buy another one.